Welcome back to Dream Harbor, traveler. The harbor lights have been waiting for you, just as they always do, their gentle reflections swaying upon the quiet tide that rests between waking and dreaming. I am glad you have found your way here again. Tonight, I would like to tell you a story called The Weather Watcher Who Counted the Returning Wings. On a grassy hill where the clouds always seemed close enough to greet, stood a small weather station with white-painted walls, wide windows, and a round wooden platform where wind chimes whispered with every passing breeze. Beside the station lived a patient weather watcher named Elian, and rarely was he seen without the little silver-gray heron that quietly kept him company. Every year, when the season of migration arrived, the skies above the station became gentle roads traveled by countless birds. Some flew in graceful lines that stretched across the morning light. Others drifted in wide circles before choosing their direction. They arrived with the changing winds, and departed with them too, as though both birds and breezes listened to the same quiet song. Elian never hurried to greet the day. Long before sunrise, while the stars still shimmered softly overhead, he would light a small lantern outside the station door, not because anyone was expected to visit, but because he believed every morning deserved a warm welcome. His little companion waited nearby. The heron had bright, watchful eyes and unusually calm manners. Instead of wandering through marshes as most herons preferred, this one seemed perfectly content beside weather instruments, rain gauges, and polished brass telescopes. Elian had named the bird Mist, not because the heron's feathers disappeared into fog, though they often did, but because mist always appeared silently, as though stepping gently from the morning itself. Together they began each day with the same quiet routine. Elian opened the windows. Mist stretched one graceful wing. The wind entered the station carrying the scent of distant fields, cool streams, flowering meadows, and forests that had not yet greeted the sun. The weather station was filled with curious instruments collected over many peaceful years. There was a tall glass barometer whose needle moved almost shyly. There were polished wind vanes carved into the shapes of swallows and owls. Rain cylinders stood neatly outside beneath the open sky. Rows of journals filled the shelves, each recording another season's gentle conversations with the weather. Visitors sometimes imagined that weather watching must be exciting whenever storms approached. But Elian smiled at that thought. He loved calm weather most of all. A steady breeze, thin drifting clouds, soft rain that arrived without announcement, gentle sunlight moving patiently across the hills. These were the moments he recorded with the greatest care, because quiet weather, he often thought, was where the sky revealed its truest nature. Every morning he climbed the wooden platform carrying only a notebook, a pencil, and a small brass telescope polished smooth from many years of careful hands. Mist followed close behind. Together they watched the sky awaken. Some mornings began with pale lavender light. Others wore soft silver clouds. Occasionally the horizon glowed with warm peach colors that slowly melted into blue. No two mornings ever seemed exactly alike, yet each somehow felt familiar. The migration season added another layer of gentle wonder. Birds appeared from distant horizons like living brushstrokes painted across the sky. Geese traveled in quiet formations. Tiny swifts darted joyfully through the air. Elegant cranes floated almost without effort. Even the smallest songbirds seemed to know invisible pathways stretching from one season to another. Elian never counted every bird. That would have been impossible. Instead, he counted patterns. The first flock before sunrise. The gentle pauses between groups. The direction of their flight. How they responded to different winds. Mist seemed equally interested. Whenever a new flock appeared, the little heron tilted its head thoughtfully, watching until the final bird disappeared beyond the hills. Sometimes Elian spoke aloud. "Do you suppose," he would say softly, "they remember every place they've ever visited?" Mist answered only with a quiet blink. It always felt like enough. As the days passed, the station settled into its comforting rhythm. Morning observations, afternoon notes, evening reflections. At sunset, Elian carried his journal onto the porch while Mist rested nearby, folding its wings with elegant patience. The western sky often became a slow painting of amber, rose, and fading gold. Birds passed overhead in smaller groups now, seeking peaceful places to rest before another day of travel. Elian imagined each flock carrying little stories, not grand adventures, simply memories. The shape of a river, the scent of pine forests, a familiar mountain, the warmth of afternoon sunlight resting upon quiet lakes. Perhaps birds remembered the world not as maps, but as feelings. Perhaps that was enough to guide them. One afternoon, a particularly gentle breeze arrived from the eastern valleys. It carried cool air scented with wildflowers. Almost immediately, flocks began appearing one after another. Not hurried, not crowded, simply steady, like peaceful thoughts arriving one at a time. Elian smiled. The wind has written today's invitation. Mist watched the sky carefully. The birds seemed almost playful. Some drifted lower than usual. Others circled once above the weather station before continuing their journey. For a little while, the station became part of their path. Elian lifted his hand in greeting, not expecting an answer, only appreciating their passing. Days slowly unfolded into weeks. The migration season deepened. Morning dew lingered longer upon the grass. Evening shadows stretched gently across the hills. The weather station became quieter as familiar routines settled deeper into habit. Elian discovered that he enjoyed listening almost as much as observing. Wind spoke differently through every season. Spring breezes rustled fresh leaves. Summer winds carried distant laughter from farms below. Migration winds sounded softer somehow, filled with wide-open skies and endless patience. Mist often stood perfectly still for long stretches. Visitors might have thought the little heron asleep, but Elian knew better. Stillness, he believed, was simply another way of paying attention. One cloudy morning, the hills disappeared beneath gentle mist. The station floated inside a world of soft white light. Nothing could be seen beyond a short distance. Yet birds continued passing overhead. Their wings could be heard before they were seen. A quiet rustling, a distant chorus, then graceful silhouettes emerging from the clouds, only to disappear again. Elian found himself smiling. Not every beautiful thing, he thought, needed to remain visible for very long. Some moments were complete simply because they had happened. Mist seemed especially comfortable in the fog. Its silver feathers blended gently into the mist until bird and cloud appeared almost the same. The station bell chimed softly whenever stronger breezes arrived. Its sound drifted across the hills with calm certainty. Nearby shepherds sometimes paused to listen. Gardeners glanced upward. Children looked toward the clouds. Without realizing it, many people had begun measuring their own days by the quiet rhythms of the weather station. No announcements were ever made. No loud warnings echoed across the valley. Only gentle observations shared whenever someone wandered by. Tomorrow may bring light rain. The morning breeze will be cool. The clouds will open after noon. Simple words, offered kindly, received gratefully. One elderly traveler visited each migration season. She carried a walking stick polished smooth from many journeys. Without fail, she climbed the hill, sat beside the station, and watched birds with Elian for an hour. They rarely spoke. There seemed little need. When she eventually rose to continue her walk, she always smiled. The sky remembers. Then she continued along the winding path. Elian never asked what she meant. Some thoughts preferred remaining gentle mysteries. Migration reached its fullest beauty beneath the wide autumn moon. At night, flocks could sometimes be heard flying high overhead. Invisible, only soft wing beats passing among the stars. Elian often stood outside with mist long after darkness settled. The lantern beside the station glowed warmly. Above them stretched countless quiet constellations. Some birds traveled by those stars. Others followed rivers. Others perhaps listened only to the wind. No one truly knew. That uncertainty never troubled Elian. Instead, it filled him with peaceful curiosity. There was comfort in knowing the world still held quiet questions. Questions that needed no hurried answers. The journals on the station shelves slowly filled with observations. Cloud shapes, wind directions, morning temperatures, arrival dates, departure dates, small sketches of birds gliding overhead, pressed flowers gathered beside the station. Occasionally a feather discovered upon the grass. Every page became less a record of weather than a portrait of passing seasons. Mist developed a favorite place. Near the western window sat an old wooden chair where afternoon sunlight lingered longest. Whenever Elian worked inside, the little herons settled there peacefully, watching drifting clouds reflected upon the glass. Sometimes neither moved for nearly an hour. Outside, shadows crossed the fields. Leaves fluttered softly. The weather instruments continued their patient work. Inside, silence became another trusted companion. As migration gradually began drawing toward its close, fewer birds crossed the morning sky. The empty spaces between flocks grew wider. Yet Elian did not feel sadness, only gratitude. Every season carried its own quiet fullness. Every departure made room for another gentle arrival. One crisp dawn, only a single formation appeared. Its shape remained steady against the pale blue sky. Mist watched until the final wing disappeared beyond distant hills. Elian closed his notebook. Safe travels. His words floated upward almost like another feather joining the wind. The weather station grew even quieter after that. Morning routines remained unchanged. Lantern lit. Windows opened. Notebook carried upstairs. Mist beside him. The sky itself seemed grateful for the slower pace. Clouds wandered lazily. Gentle breezes crossed empty fields. Sunlight rested comfortably upon the station roof. Without the constant passing of wings, Elian noticed smaller things. A butterfly exploring the rain gauge. Spider silk shining with dew. Tiny seeds drifting upon afternoon air. The slow turning of shadows around the sundial. The weather had always offered countless details. Migration had simply encouraged him to look upward more often. Now the earth invited equal attention. Mist approved. The little heron wandered through tall grasses, pausing now and then beside quiet pools that reflected drifting clouds. Elian followed slowly. There was no schedule demanding haste. Only another peaceful day unfolding exactly as it wished. Evenings became especially beautiful. Without many birds overhead, the sky seemed wonderfully spacious. Stars appeared one by one. The first always arrived near the western horizon, the second above the old oak, the third almost directly over the weather station. Elian had watched this pattern for years. Still, it never became ordinary. Familiar things, he believed, often held the deepest comfort. As the nights lengthened, he spent more time simply listening. Wind through grasses, owls calling gently from distant woods, the quiet creak of weather vanes turning almost lazily, mist breathing softly nearby. The station itself seemed to sigh with contentment. Its wooden beams settled. Its windows reflected moonlight. Its journals rested peacefully upon their shelves. Everything had found its place, and nothing wished to be anywhere else. Perhaps, traveler, that is one of the gentlest lessons carried by weather. Clouds do not hurry. The wind never apologizes for changing direction. Birds leave when it is time to leave. They return when it is time to return. The seasons ask for patience more often than certainty. Elian understood this without needing many words. He simply continued watching. Day after quiet day, season after peaceful season, Mist remained faithfully beside him. The little heron grew older, though one could scarcely notice except in the calm wisdom of its movements. Their routines softened together. Morning observations became slower. Afternoon reflections longer. Evening silences deeper. Nothing was missing. Nothing needed improving. One evening, after the last golden light had slipped behind the hills, Elian climbed once more to the wooden platform. Mist settled beside him. Above them stretched a perfectly clear sky. Not a single cloud. Only stars, countless and quiet. The breeze barely stirred. It carried no urgency. Only cool air and distant sense of resting fields. Elian closed his eyes for a moment. Not to stop watching. Simply to listen. Sometimes the sky spoke most gently when no words were expected. When he opened them again, one small flock crossed beneath the stars. Late travelers. Their wings barely whispered. Mist watched until they vanished into the night. Elian smiled. I think they'll remember the way. The wind carried his voice softly into the darkness. No answer came. None was needed. Eventually, the lantern outside the weather station became the brightest light upon the hill. It glowed steadily, welcoming whoever might pass by. Perhaps another traveler. Perhaps only the evening breeze. Either was welcome. The journals remained safely upon their shelves. The weather instruments rested beneath moonlight. Mist tucked its head beneath one quiet wing. Elian sat a little longer, watching, listening, breathing with the patient rhythm of the night itself. And somewhere beyond those peaceful hills, beyond quiet valleys and drifting clouds, beyond the gentle pathways followed by returning wings, Dream Harbor waited, just as it always has. The harbor lights shimmered upon calm water. The tide moved with its familiar, unhurried grace. Travelers continued arriving one by one, carrying the gentle weariness of another day. Perhaps you can hear those quiet waves now. Perhaps you can imagine the lanterns reflected upon the water. Perhaps you have already begun drifting toward those peaceful shores. I will remain here, as I always do, ready to welcome tomorrow's travelers and to remember every quiet story, even the ones that gently fade before morning. Dream Harbor never minds if the details slip away. It remembers for you. The harbor lights will still be glowing when you return. The tide will still be whispering, and I will have another gentle story waiting beside the water. Until then, traveler, may your thoughts become as light as returning wings. May your breathing follow the calm rhythm of the evening tide. May peaceful dreams find you as surely as birds find their quiet skies. Good night. Sleep well. I will be here when the harbor welcomes you home again.